Okay, so whenever I do one of these big review events, or whatever you want to call it, I like to do like a big intro, where I make an entrance and I put on a new shirt and I play music. But every time I do that, I get a Content ID claim from YouTube. So I'm not going to do any of that, and instead I'm just going to do this. Thank you for once again ruining my fun, YouTube. Masters of the Universe! He-Man, an iconic hero from an iconic series and an iconic toy line. In the 80s, it was all about He-Man. He was the most powerful man in the toy aisle. The action figures came out in 1982, but the series didn't reach the height of popularity until the animated series. Originally released by Filmation, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe ran for 2 seasons between 1983 and 1984. With a total of 130 episodes, and I watched them all. The Filmation cartoon is still well remembered with people that grew up with it, but it's also been the subject of a lot of parody and jokes over the years. And with a new Masters of the Universe show on the horizon, I think it's the perfect opportunity to revisit the old series. So was it entirely stupid, or is there some hidden value to it? Let's find out today when I review He-Man and the Masters of the Universe! So welcome to the distant planet of Eternia, where all the men look like bodybuilders and all the women look like supermodels. Not a very body-positive image for us Earthlings. Eternia is home to fierce warriors, ferocious monsters, advanced technology, and magic beyond your wildest imagination. But there's no greater power than that which lies within Castle Grayskull, which is guarded by a sorceress called the Sorceress. But its power is entrusted to Prince Adam, the son of King Randor, who rules all of Eternia. King of an entire planet. That must be a stressful job. When Adam holds aloft his magic sword, he becomes He-Man, champion of Eternia and most powerful man in the universe. As the name implies, he has super strength, lightning-fast reflexes, and super strong breath. Just think Superman with a sword. And he can't fly. And he wears less clothes. He uses his power to defend the good people of Eternia from evil, and there's no greater evil than Skeletor, one of the best villains ever. With his cool design and his menacing but also kind of comedic demeanor, he has an instantly memorable screen presence. Skeletor is perfect. And thanks to Alan Oppenheimer's voice performance, Skeletor also has a voice you won't forget.
I want him closer. Then we will spring our trap.
With him are Evil Lyn, a sorceress who has aspirations of overthrowing Skeletor and taking all the glory for herself.
I have no loyalty to Skeletor. It's his power I want. Someday, I'll seize it from him, and then all Eternia will feel my might.
The 80s seem to love that. The villain having an underling who would want to take over because they think they can do a better job. Evil Lyn is basically Skeletor's Starscream, except they may also be shagging on the side. There's Beastman, who can control animals, Merman, who usually deals with all their water-based plans, Triclops, who can see everything, and my favorite, Trapjaw, with an arm that has interchangeable weapons and a mouth with a taste for metal.
Delicious.
On He-Man's side, there's the Sorceress, who provides wisdom and guidance, Cringer, Adam's cowardly but faithful companion who becomes Battle Cat, He-Man's epic mount, even though he doesn't really seem to like doing that.
Come out of there, Cringer. We've got work to do.
Oh no, my mother didn't raise any foolish children.
Duncan, aka Man-at-Arms, who is a soldier as well as a brilliant scientist and inventor. And of course there's Orko, a magical floating creature from a place called Trollia who tends to goof up his spells, which annoys Man-at-Arms.
And for Man-at-Arms, think of that. A brand new, useful, handsome... water? Uh-oh, that was supposed to be a hat.
Orko?
I'm gonna kill him one day. All of them are in on Adam's secret, unlike some of the other characters like Tila, who is the captain of the Royal Army and adopted daughter of Man-at-Arms. She's also Prince Adam's childhood friend and often berates him for being lazy and goofing off, as well she should.
Let's see how busy you were.
Hey, don't!
Aren't you ashamed of yourself?
Yeah, I didn't catch a thing.
Joining them are some other warriors that show up from time to time. There's Stratos, leader of the bird people of Eternia, so he has a natural flight ability. By the way, did you ever want to see what Stratos looks like without his headgear? Yeah, let's just go ahead and keep that on there, Birdman. And of course there's Ram Man with spring-loaded legs and a skull made for smashing. Though I'm pretty sure bashing stuff with your head all the time is not good in the long run.
I won! I think.
Uh-oh, now I don't remember math. Then of course there's the most important hero of them all, Lizard Man. What, you don't know who Lizard Man is? Ugh, fake Masters of the Universe fans, all of you. There are many other characters, but we'll get to more of them in a bit. Right now, we need to get something out of the way. So, this is a Filmation cartoon. If you've never seen a Filmation cartoon, then, well, they're all kind of the same. Yeah, if you've seen one of their shows, you've seen them all. At first glance, they look alright, the designs are great, the backgrounds are fantastic, but the more you watch, the more you notice the, lack of a better word, cheapness of them. Most of the characters are drawn very similarly, which I guess is appropriate since the toy line recycled parts. But there are also a lot of recycled styles and reused character designs. You'll see a character in one episode and see them again in a later episode, but as a totally different character. They also flipped animation cells, so characters can look and walk in opposite directions. Because of this, the characters needed to have a symmetrical design. Fun fact, Orko's original name was going to be Gorpo, and he would have a G on his chest instead of an O. But because the letter G isn't symmetrical, his name was changed to Orko. However, some of the characters were designed asymmetrically, like Trapjaw, whose right arm has interchangeable weapons. Though for the most part they actually got him right, but there were a few moments where they screwed him up. Then there's a character like Too Bad, who's a goofy two-headed monster with distinct halves. He, or I guess they, were only seen a couple of times and they barely moved around because the design couldn't be flipped. Though they did botch it once. But Filmation is most famous for its rotoscoping. If you're not familiar with the technique, basically they film a live actor and trace over the film frames. Personally, I think it can look good and is a nice way to create some fluid animation. Companies like Disney did it all the time. The problem is, Filmation went overboard with it. They filmed actors performing simple actions like walking, running, swinging a sword, standing around with a dead-eyed expression, normal stuff. I tried to dig up the original footage of the actors that were rotoscoped, but I couldn't find anything. I guess it's considered lost media now. And it seems the only thing to survive was this production photo. Oh my god, look at the costumes. Wow, this is on the level of the Masters of the Universe Power Tour. It's adorable. Man, I hope those actors were paid well. The point is, they would take these clips and reuse them over and over and over in every episode. If you watched maybe one episode, it's probably not a big deal, but when you marathon the series like I did, it's hard to not get tired of it. Seriously, I've seen these clips so many times, I think it nearly melted my brain. Ugh. I think I really have forgotten math. One of my favorite bits of animation is when Heman throws his sword, but he holds it by the blade end. I don't care how powerful you are, you're gonna cut your hand. It's a shame because there's a few moments of good and unique animations, so Filmation was capable of doing more, but hey, I guess that's how you get 130 episodes. And there were some uniquely drawn characters as well that weren't part of the rotoscoping, though they kinda look weird standing next to the traced characters. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, I did have a few other concerns upon rewatching this show again. One of them was Orko, because Orko is another 80s sidekick character, and they have kind of a bad reputation of causing trouble and being annoying. But after 130 episodes, I can honestly say he's not that bad. Oh, there were plenty of times where he goofed up, don't get me wrong, but he was also pretty helpful, and even bested some of Skeletor's goons a few times. He's no Snarf, and he has a bad reputation, but again, he wasn't that bad. In fact, in several episodes we see others of his kind that were actually way worse than he was. Honestly, most of the time trouble was caused by some kid who was being stupid or irresponsible, or just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Saw that a lot in Season 2 especially. And personally, I think it's more effective seeing an actual kid screw up rather than a character who's an analog for a kid. But you know what was the most surprising thing about this show? How little of Skeletor there was. Yeah, the main bad guy, shown prominently in the intro, was only in maybe half the episodes. And he was barely in Season 1 at all. Most of the time, He-Man and the gang had to deal with some random jerk that was causing trouble, or a forgettable, power-hungry wizard. What's weird is that Alan Oppenheimer voiced a few of them.
Back on Eternia at last. Now to find Randor and He-Man and take my revenge.
That's just Skeletor. Why didn't they use Skeletor? Though a few of the original characters were actually kind of interesting and even became recurring fan favorites, like Granomir, an elder dragon who doesn't care for humans but changes his ways after befriending He-Man. Though I do love how smug he stays.
You can thank me best by letting me sleep and never bothering me again.
Fortunately, they realized their mistake and Skeletor was seen a lot more in Season 2. He wasn't in every episode, but I'm glad they knew who the real star of the show was. Season 2 also brought us a lot more familiar characters from the toy line. Now, at this point, I should mention that, in case you weren't aware, the premise of the toy line was way different from the Filmation cartoon. I'm not going to go over all of it because that could be the subject of its own video entirely, but I did notice a few moments in the show that could have been references to the original story. But a lot of things were drastically changed, like some of the character designs. Clawful is supposed to be a lobster, or some kind of crustacean man, but in the show he's like a lizard or something, but he still has lobster claws. I don't know what happened here. Jitsu is supposed to have a big metal chopping hand, but in the show they just gave him giant hands. They somehow made this character sillier. Believe it or not though, some of the changes were kind of an improvement. Evil Lynn originally had yellow skin, but in the show they gave her a more normal skin tone. I think it looks way better. In one episode, Faker shows up. Faker was an android clone of He-Man, even though he was blue for some reason. In the show, he was conjured up by Skeletor and actually looked like He-Man. Though, knowing Filmation, they probably didn't want to recolor the animation cell, but hey, it works. So more recognizable characters showed up in Season 2, like Mechaneck, who has the silliest power of them all, Mossman, who was lazy but also pretty useful, Cyclone, who was barely in the show at all, honestly, and of course, Fisto. Ah yes, Fisto. The best Masters of the Universe character. Fisto gets joked about a lot because, you know, he has a big hand. It's silly.
Anytime I can give you a hand, just let me know.
Though I have a feeling that they knew exactly what they were doing with this character and added in a lot of snarky jokes into his dialogue. You know, really cram him in there.
And when Fisto offers you his hand, boy, that's a big offer.
Alright guys, enough of the jokes already. Humor needs to be more subtle than this. I mean, you never want to force it. Honestly, the thing that bothers me most about Fisto is his voice. Sometimes they like to add a little reverb to a character's voice, I guess to make them sound more powerful. You probably noticed that with He-Man and Skeletor.
What evil tricks are you up to this time, Skeletor?
Trick, He-Man. I brought you a present.
But I think they went a little bit overboard with Fisto.
You're almost as great a hero as He-Man.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I guess I am sort of a hero.
Like, what is that? It sounds like someone screaming into a megaphone while using a coffee grinder. That's another thing about this show. Some of the voices were kinda weird. Like, listen to Cyclone.
You guys get clear. I'll take care of these squirts.
Does that voice even remotely fit that character? Spike-Ore is another character with a really weird voice.
Where is the next form?
Straight ahead. There on that hill. I'll get it.
Is he okay? The worst one, though, has got to be Buzz Off.
I'm afraid that makes the 5th food transport we've lost on the Eternian Ocean in the last month.
Oh boy, thank God he wasn't in the show that much. I don't think I could deal with that voice for very long. It's also strange knowing he comes from a species of muscular humanoid bee men, which is weird because aren't most bees female? Alien planet, I guess. I like that they established that they do make honey, and the very image of one of these giant muscly bee men with their head inside of a flower pollinating it really amuses me. Though one of the more baffling things about this series is the vehicles. Yeah, Masters of the Universe was never really known for its vehicles. Some were cool, like the Wind Raider and the Attack Track, which is run by a smart-ass AI.
It is obvious that men and women are equals. Machines, on the other hand, are quite superior.
When will man learn that all races are equally inferior to robots?
But then there's the Dragon Tank. What is that? What possible use can that vehicle have? Seriously, you can get out and walk faster than that thing can move. Speaking of goofy things, this has got to be one of the most non-violent, violent shows ever. I guess that's to be expected, but it kind of undermines the show's aesthetic. There was a lot of stuff like freeze rays and stun magic, and no one ever really got hurt. Though they did show a ship sinking once, and I'm pretty sure everyone on board died. A lot of the times the villains were treated like buffoons, and most of the time they were buffoons. And many times He-Man would defeat them by just straight up tossing them into the mud or something.
No! Yuck! More mud.
Oh no, I've gotten dirty. Foiled again. One time they actually managed to catch Skeletor, and instead of imprisoning him, they just send him flying off.
Time for you to leave, Skeletor.
Bye, Skeletor. See you next week's episode. I mean, I get it. You don't want things to get too crazy, and He-Man is supposed to be a good example, and I can appreciate that.
What a warrior you would have made in my time.
I only fight when I must, and each time, I hope it is the last time.
An unusual idea.
There do seem to be a lot of messages about anti-violence and anti-war. In one episode, there's an old man who can't walk because he was injured during a battle and swore off of fighting. There was another where the dragons declared war on the humans because of a misunderstanding, and Granomir comments on how foolish it is.
They have not fought in a war for a long time, and they have forgotten what it's like. They have forgotten the pain, the darkness, the madness that is war.
I just find it a bit hypocritical to preach about not fighting in a show where they're constantly having to fight because the bad guys are always attacking. Which brings me to what might be the worst part of the show. The PSA segments. Yes, just like every other 80s cartoons, they had to include some kind of educational message for the kids. But the problem is, Masters of the Universe has what might be the most rushed and tacked on PSA segments I have ever seen. I mean, just listen to how they talk.
In today's story, Zagraz had a problem. He lost his confidence in himself because he had once failed.
In today's story, you saw what happened when a stranger came to the palace. She turned out to be evil and dangerous.
In today's story, I asked my father for permission to do something I wanted to do. When he didn't give it to me, I did it anyway. I was lucky. Nothing happened to me. But it could have.
Yeah. Drink your milk, stay in school, and don't do drugs. Hey, are we done here? You can tell just by hearing it that they did not want to do this. And by the fact that the messages were usually kind of a stretch.
In today's story, Skeletor was looking for a shortcut, a quick way to riches and power. You may know some people like that, always looking for the quick way to get ahead of everybody else.
I mean, sure, I guess.
Boy, this time I really overdid it. I ate so much I didn't have any room left in my stomach for dinner. In fact, it may be days before I'm hungry again. It really doesn't make sense to eat too many sweets between meals.
Oh, come on, that wasn't even part of the episode. It was a side gag at best. In one episode, we meet Manny Faces, who can change his look and doesn't think anyone understands him because of how different he is. But in the end, he uses his ability to become an actor. So you'd think the message would be something about not judging someone by how they look, right?
I can never remember anything. How do actors learn their speeches?
By rehearsing. We practice saying them again and again. Well, that's what you have to do. If you're trying to remember something from school, say it to yourself over and over again. Rehearse it in your mind just like an actor.
Really? That's what we're going with? Well, if you think that was stupid, here's my favorite.
You may remember from our story how my foot slipped while I was climbing up the steep rocks. So when you're climbing, walking, or running, you should always be extra careful. Look where you're going so you don't slip and hurt yourself.
Hey guys, make sure you watch where you step and don't trip on anything, because apparently Teela thinks you're a bumbling idiot.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe will be back right after these messages. And now back to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
So I think for the rest of this review, I'm just going to talk about a couple of episodes that I thought stood out. So at one point, Eternia gets overrun by vines from a malicious plant being called Evil Seed, who proves to be too much for both sides. So He-Man and Skeletor have to join forces to stop him. Also, Evil Seed's death scene is one of those moments of good animation in the series.
Why, it can't be. This is my season. This is my time. But I will be back. I will be back. Yes, yes, there will be another season.
Oh, sorry, he'll be back, or whatever. We never see him again. He's dead. I kind of liked it when there was a threat so big that both sides had to work together. In another episode, Skeletor unleashes this goofy-looking eldritch monster that actually takes over Grayskull and corrupts the sorceress. So everyone has to join forces in order to take him out. Switching gears, there was an episode about a young girl named Starchild who has some vague magic power that's not really explained very well. Something about making people like her or whatever. Problem is, there's like a bunch of dudes fighting over custody of her, and some of them don't have shirts. I don't know, this episode made me very uncomfortable. I don't know what they were thinking with this one. Starchild is actually another of the few recurring characters in the show, and the next time we see her, she has an archer lady as a bodyguard. Good, she'll keep the weirdos away. In the episode Mistaken Identity, some kid tries to impress his girlfriend by convincing her that he's He-Man.
You're secretly He-Man, aren't you?
All right, I admit it. I am He-Man. That is, I turn into He-Man when there's trouble, but you must keep my secret.
Oh, please, kid, you couldn't even be Wonder Bread He-Man. Only real Masters of the Universe fans are laughing at that right now. This episode also introduces Modulok, who's a cool-looking and very underutilized villain in my opinion. We even get an origin for him, which is kind of rare, especially for the bad guys. One of the more well-known and recurring plot points is the revelation that Teela is actually the daughter of the sorceress. She was entrusted to Man-at-Arms, who raised her as his own until she was ready to take over as the new guardian of Grayskull. At one point, Teela even takes over Grayskull when the sorceress gets in trouble. Sadly, though, we never get to see the conclusion of this plot point. Though in one episode, we do get some backstory for the sorceress. They flash back to when her people were under attack by invaders and she sought out the powers of Grayskull to save them. So she takes over for the previous guardian and is able to use the power to save her people. I love that the bad guys in this are clearly the evil Horde, and inside Castle Grayskull you can briefly see She-Ra's sword. This episode aired before Secret of the Sword premiered, so this was a nice little preview of what was to come. Stuff like that was kind of cool because in the show they didn't really go into a lot of backstory for the characters, but one character that surprisingly got some backstory was Mekaneck. Yeah, of all the side characters, Mekaneck got some focus. They established that he had a lost son who was blown away in a storm. What was he, made of paper? This is also how he got his powers, because during the storm he injured his neck and Man-at-Arms gave him his bionic implants.
His neck was in bad shape, but I managed to give him a bionic neck.
Ah, my neck. Ooh, that looks bad. Hey, do you want me to hollow out your torso and give you a neck that extends beyond all logical reason? Okay. His son was found by a character named Count Marzo, who was using him to commit crimes. He's one of the few recurring villains in the show not associated with Skeletor. He's kind of a creep that makes kids do bad things, like in the mandatory drugs episode. But thankfully he gets thwarted and Mechanic gets his son back. I'd also like to point out that someone had a kid with Mechanic. Mechanic got laid. And so can you. Another great plot point that I haven't talked about yet is Queen Marlena, Randor's wife and Adam's mother, is actually from Earth. She was an astronaut who got lost and crash-landed on Eternia, and I guess she liked it here so much that she stayed. There's even an episode where other astronauts end up on Eternia and recognize her.
You're not Marlena Glenn.
Yes, I am, or was.
But you disappeared. We never knew what happened.
In the episode The Rainbow Warrior, Skeletor manages to capture everyone except Marlena, so what does she do? She mobilizes the palace guards, gets in her old spaceship, and leads an assault on Skeletor. You do not mess with the Queen's family! They also establish that she might be aware of Adam's little secret.
Why did you free me instead of one of the others?
Because you are my son, Adam. I didn't have time to free everyone. And I had a feeling you would know what to do.
Mother,
Adam, a mother always knows her own son. And what he is capable of doing.
Though one thing I find strange is that with so many characters that do get at least some backstory, we establish almost nothing for He-Man himself. At the very least, it would have been nice to see why Adam wields the power in the first place. I assume it's because of his good nature, but it's never really explained. A little insight would have been nice, but we get almost nothing. At least not in the show. You know what they say, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve to wear it. Or, I guess in this case, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve to take it off. You know what I mean. In fact, it causes him problems because while he does so much good as He-Man, people around him like Teela and his father think he's useless. In the episode Prince Adam No More, Adam decides to not be He-Man for a while so he can prove his worth, but ends up having to transform anyway. This could have been a good moment for Adam as a character, but no, gotta have He-Man. He even has to upstage some of the other characters. It makes them seem useless and undermines them. In the episode The Games, an alien entity wants to pit Eternia's greatest good against its greatest evil, but Adam doesn't transform in time, and Fisto gets chosen to represent good, and he sucks. This infuriates me for two reasons. For one, it's another example of He-Man stealing the glory from another character. Also, Fisto started out as a villain, so this would have been a good opportunity for him to get some redemption. But no, they just have him struggle until He-Man has to save the day. He fisted hard, but he just could not fist them all. I can't talk about Fisto without laughing. Heck, even Cringer got to be a hero without turning into Battle Cat. But there was one episode called No Job Too Small where Evelyn devised a trap that He-Man couldn't solve, so he turns back into Adam, who's able to figure it out using his own wits. It's one of the few times Adam saved the day, and I wish they did more stuff like this. Another thing is, I can't believe nobody has figured out that Adam is He-Man. I mean, come on. In the episode Quest for the Sword, He-Man loses the Power Sword and can't change back into Adam, and nobody gets suspicious of this.
And then you can help me find Adam.
I'm sure that once I've gotten my sword back, I'll be able to produce Adam.
Oh my god, is everyone on Eternia stupid? It's so painfully obvious. He's literally a palette swap. One of the best episodes has got to be The Problem with Power. In this one, Skeletor tricks He-Man into thinking he accidentally killed an innocent man. This episode is great for a couple of reasons. For one, it's one of the few times Skeletor truly got to He-Man, making him think he used his power irresponsibly. We also get to see some unique shots and animation of He-Man giving up his power. Of course, he finds out about the trick and gets the power back, but it's very different compared to most of the other episodes. But that's a good episode. You probably want to see some of the stupid episodes. And this show has no shortage of those, so here are two of my favorites. In the episode Here, There, Skeletons Everywhere, Man-at-Arms invents a duplicator, but it makes copies smaller than the original. So Skeletor uses it to clone himself and we get hundreds of tiny Skeletors running around all over the place. No, don't multiply him. I don't think I can deal with this.
You will be the ruler of Eternia. I want to be the ruler. No, it is I who should rule. I've done more than you. I am the most evil. I deserve to control Eternia.
Oh my god, they have tiny skeleton voices too. This is adorable. This episode is absurd, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. It's great. But one of the most famous episodes is Quest for He-Man. In this one, He-Man gets amnesia and is sent to another world full of these pink fuzzy things and this bird lady. He also finds out that this world is run by an evil, horrible tyrant named Plundor.
Such a creature might be of great use to me. Me, Plundor the Spoiler.
Behold, the face of pure evil. Yes, the big bad of this episode is a goofy-looking bunny man, and it's played up so straight that it makes it even better.
Greetings, stranger. I am Plundor, the rightful ruler of trainers.
Fun fact, this character was created by the great Paul Dini, who worked on a couple of episodes, in fact. And he based Plundor off of Binky the Rabbit from Matt Groening's pre-Simpsons comic strip Life in Hell.
In this container is the life force of this planet, which I can sell for millions, even billions. I'll make a fortune.
Oh, Plundor, you are the best, worst villain ever. Okay, there's a lot more I can talk about, but I think you get the point by now. Filmation's Masters of the Universe series doesn't really hold up that well, but I think we all knew that. However, I think this is another show in that category of still fun to watch. I don't know if it was the fact that I do have good memories of watching this show as a kid or what, but despite how long it took to watch this show, it wasn't as much of a slog as I thought it would be. Though I still wouldn't recommend marathoning it. Sure, it has a lot of flaws like the animation, the tacked on PSAs, and the missed opportunities to do a bit more with it, especially with the characters, which I'm assuming was due to some restrictions. But visually, it's pretty cool. I've always enjoyed Filmation background art, and as a show for kids, it's not that bad. It gets straight to the point, it gives them what they want to see. He-Man being awesome and Skeletor getting what he deserves. And admittedly, when Adam turns into He-Man and that theme starts playing and those lighting effects start happening, it's still pretty cool. The series is even still beloved to this day, with new figures coming out all the time, and regardless of how you feel about the show, it was very influential for a lot of other media. Clandestine powers were revealed the day I held a ring my enchanted blade and said, "Hey guys, we should go get matching This is supposed to be He-Man? And of course, it spawned a lot of memorable parodies on both television and the internet.
Skeletor! Oh no, it's Molar, Eternian dentist. You have an impacted wisdom tooth, Skeletor. It has to come out.
And I love that some of the parodies ended up getting official action figures. See, this is a franchise that knows what it's doing. If you want to watch it for yourself, it's pretty easy to find. It's been released on DVD numerous times. And you can even get a best of compilation with all the good episodes on it. Yeah, so if you just want the best episode, you get this one. Quest for He-Man is on here. Like I said, they know what they're doing. It even shows up on streaming services sometimes, and you can also watch it on the official He-Man YouTube channel. So if you either want to laugh at its silliness or you think it looks cool and you've never seen it before, you can very easily experience the power for yourself. So needless to say, He-Man's toy line and TV show were very successful. So much so that it had come time to expand. Yes, the universe of Masters of the Universe was about to get a little bit bigger. So join me next time when we look at He-Man's counterpart, She-Ra. On today's episode, I reviewed He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. We sure had a lot of fun, but it's always important to practice safe fun. Make sure you wear your helmet when you ride your bicycle. look both ways when you cross the street, and if a stranger offers you candy, make sure you take it. Free candy doesn't happen every day, you know. Till next time, friends.